engaging conversation. 4 stories are covered, 3 of which are by Chopin: Desiree's Baby, Ripe Figs, and The Storm. The 4th story is by Tobias Wolff, which is Powder. These stories are useful for putting practice into a lesson. The first quote in Ripe Figs that caught my attention was as this one. "Ah," said Maman, arching her eyebrows, "how early the figs have ripened this year." "Oh," said Babette, "I think they have ripened very late." Page 4. This is an important quote to note because it shows the difference in passage of time through Maman Nene's eyes and Babette's. It also serves that the figs are an illusion for Babette's growth and development. As she is still young, she sees herself aging quite slowly, but for Maman Nene, who has seen her since she was a child and watched her grow, she's felt it's happened too fast. And thus happens in life. The older you get, the quicker time seems to fly as you have more to compare it to. The second quote in Ripe Figs that caught my attention was, "And tell your aunt, Tante for sign, I shall look for her at Toussaint, when the chrysanthemums are in bloom." Page 4. It is important to know the meaning of the chrysanthemums in the story, that they bloom in fall, and that Toussaint is a day that's typically celebrated with family. So Tante for sign must be part of Babette and Maman Nene's immediate relatives that they talk to and so forth, and they must really care about her in order to send her figs and visit her during times of joy, as the chrysanthemums are symbolism for joy, prosperity, and life. Desiree's Baby is quite a different story from Ripe Figs, although being by Chopin. It talks about controversial issues such as racism and feminism in Louisiana during Chopin's time. And this quote was really changing for my perspective on the story. Desiree had not changed the thin white garment nor the slippers which she wore. Her hair was uncovered, and the sun's rays brought a golden gleam from its brown meshes. She did not take the broad, beaten road which led to the far-off plantation of Valmonde. She walked across a deserted field, where the stubble bruised her tender feet, so delicately shod, and tore her thin gown to shreds. She disappeared among the reeds and willows that grew thick along the banks of the deep, sluggish bayou, and she did not come back again. This particular scene in the story was right after Armin had sent her out of the house for having a baby that was his, but was not white. This is important because not only is it a moment of freedom for Desiree where she doesn't return to her parents and leaves her husband, but it is an important moment because she never returns again, thus severing the bonds between child and father, so they could never be reconstructed and further damage the child's self-view. Armin learns the mistake of his ways at the very end of the story, and this quote is what shifts the story entirely. It was part of an old letter from his mom to his father. He read it. She was thanking God for the blessing of her husband's love, but above all she wrote, "Night and day I thank good God for having so arranged our lives that our dear Armin will never know that his mother, who adores him, belongs to a race that is cursed with the brand of slavery." So his parents had loved each other and had not cared about their social status. But Armand was so concerned with being pure that he sent out his wife and child, although neither of them having quite the blame, for it was he the one who carried slaves' blood, and he had unknowingly turned out the only people who accepted him for who he was. The Storm by Kate Chopin is a short passage, which is a sequel to At the Cadian Ball. It is about the progress in the characters' lives and how the married life is working, or rather, not working for them. And the tension between the characters is visible on page 36. Callista put her hands to her eyes. With a cry, staggered backward. Elise's arm encircled her, and for an instant he drew her close and spasmodically to him. This is a moment where the rising action is taking place in the story, and the storm is about to unfold upon Callista and Elise, and unknowingly Clarice and Bobinot are far away with nothing they could do to stop the storm from happening. However, once it's over, it seems that no difference is made besides the act itself. As at the very end, Kate Chopin writes, "So the storm passed and everyone was happy." However, I don't quite agree with the happiness and joy from deception and carnal desire. It is more of a feigned happiness that one uses to cover up something else, the unsatisfaction each of the characters holds inside themselves. Bobby not for not marrying someone who could have made him happy, and Calixta for the same reason. Elise and Clarice for not going against their social status, and they're all living together very unhappily. So at the end, once the damage is done, they didn't really live happily ever after. It was more of a cover up for everything that had gone, and since they could no longer change the turn of events, they pretend. Powder, by far my favorite story in Unit 1. It talks about the relationship between father and child and touches upon the importance of knowing the consequences of what you're going to get into. It's my favorite quote from Powder was, "I knew we'd get caught. I was resigned to it. And maybe for this reason, I stopped moping and began to enjoy myself." The entire story is a metaphor for life, the rumpy roads ahead, and going against the odds, which are symbolized through the police and traffic rules. And even though they know the outcome, a brief detour might land them in an unfortunate situation. But what occurred on that brief detour changed their lives, and I find it very amazing that they could just resign themselves and break away from the normality, as it causes many people difficulty to do. Powder ends like this. Except maybe to say this, if you haven't driven fresh powder, you haven't driven. This quote is incredibly fascinating because it highlights the purpose of life and enjoying life to the fullest. Understanding the consequences that may come from your actions, but proceeding to do it anyways makes you decide that they are worth it. Living life straight to the rules is boring, but living life completely reckless is one of the worst paths you could take. But finding the middle ground between them, where you could have just enough fun and still be safe, or break little to no rules. And it's quite fascinating that a person so young, less than 16, could understand this when it takes adults so long to find out the answers. And by the time they do, they are usually too late, such as the characters from The Storm. But this young boy in the story discovers that life needs a little risk now and then to be able to be fully maximized. It is a fitting end for the unit, and I find it very inspiring